today. Now go and tell all the neighbors, yeah. Then crank up the radio. There's infotainment, brilliant to get you on your way. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
All right, the producer says action. That means me. Good to have you here. I don't know if producer Chad said that or not. He just waved a finger at me, and I'm not sure what finger that was. Good to have all of you here on this Monday edition of the show. Year of our Lord 2025, the 9th day of June. Year of our Lord 2025. You got to get the whole thing together. Good to have you here. If you're new to the program, Jimmy Lakey is my name. I have been unleashed from the confines of corporate media and corporate radio, and here we are independently paving our way, marching our way merrily down the path of information and entertainment together here in the house of Lakey. All right, Los Angeles gone to hell in a handbasket. There's a top news story we're going to get to today. What is this with these people trying to have sympathy to their cause but standing there waving the Mexican flag? If you ever talk about an 80-20 or 90-10 issue, I think most people look at the idiots that are there in Los Angeles causing the trouble, causing the ruckus, waving the American flags on the streets. You know, if the country is so damn bad, why are you, and you don't want to get your ass deported back to your motherland, why are you waving the Mexican flag on the streets? I mean, think of this. We're protesting that these people are being deported to Mexico, but we love Mexico so much that we're waving the flag of that hellhole of a nation, that narco-terrorist state, in my opinion, protected by the Constitution. It really is fascinating, waving the flag. Maybe they're saying, hey, wave the flag. This is where you deport us to. Take us back to Mexico. I'm thinking that if you're trying to get sympathy for your cause, waving a flag on the streets of Los Angeles is not necessarily the way to have national, the heartland of America, say, oh my God, poor little illegals. They're going to have their asses deported. So we feel so bad. So anyway, we'll talk more about that coming up. What else do we have? Oh, a discussion about the actions of the president in deploying the National Guard to head to Los Angeles. And some people say, well, he's also threatening to send Marines from Camp Pendleton. He can't do that by the Constitution. There's posse comitatus. Well, have you read the whole thing of posse comitatus? We'll dive into that and bust some bubbles out there in the media. They were okay, the National Guard. They thought it was already a crisis that the president took control of the National Guard. Gavin says, give me my National Guard back. Let me have control. And President Trump says, no, you're not using the National Guard. They said, well, you're escalating things. Well, things were already escalating. They're saying that the National Guard had really ginned things up on the street. If you watch last night's press conference, the Sunday evening press conference of the Los Angeles police chief, which I did watch because I'm committed to give you the best information. They asked him the question. They said, do you think it really got heated today because of the National Guard? He goes, well, the National Guard's not even here yet. He said, so no, it didn't get heated because of that. The National Guard numbers that are here is actually so small that no, it didn't. These are agitators. The police chief said this. These are professional agitators. You might have had some good people not liking the deportation. You might have had some good people to disagree on our border security. That's okay, but what you have now are these professional Antifa types that have shown up on the streets of L.A., and Gavin Newsom being the jackass that he is, and Karen Bass, the defunct mayor, feckless mayor of Los Angeles, out there saying, this is awful. We can handle this ourselves. I don't think you can handle this yourselves. You Democrat-led cities had the opportunity to handle rioters back in 2020 with the George Floyd days, and those lasted over 100 days. So anyway, President Trump has said, I'll take over the National Guard, and he can do that. If you read the statutes surrounding the National Guard, if you read the statute of the National Guard, the president can take it over when a local governor is unwilling to, or when federal laws are being slapped in the face of, and there's a federal issue there. So Gavin Newsom does not have sole control. The president at any time can take control of the National Guard. Someone just posted up a statement about posse comitatus, and they said it is not constitutional. And we'll dive into the merits of it and what it is, but there is some people were criticizing on the media. Well, I don't like Donald Trump. He's really a dictator. He's going to violate posse comitatus, which basically means the U.S. military cannot be sent and and be quartered in your house, and they cannot be hanging out of the streets, and we will not use a military force. We're not a military nation. We're not under martial law. However, my friends, I will give you a little bit of breaking news that if by chance the president, according to it's a federal law that prohibits the U.S. federal military personnel, specifically Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force, etc., to execute domestic laws unless expressly authorized by the Constitution. The law was enacted in 1878, and it limits the federal government's power for military enforcement over a civilian population, meaning here in the United States. The Posse Comitatus Act does not apply to the Coast Guard, which has law enforcement authority with the Department of Homeland Security. Now, there are some interesting things you need to know about Posse Comitatus. There are certain things, because Posse Comitatus says, unless specifically granted by the Congress, that we cannot use our military to police a civilian population. Well, did you know that the Insurrection Act, Section 10 of U.S. Code, is the most significant statutory exception to Posse Comitatus? People clutching their pearls and say, President can't put 500 Marines from Camp Pendleton. Well, read the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act says the president can use military to suppress insurrections in America, rebellions, and domestic violence when requested by states or when federal law cannot be enforced through ordinary means. So that's the Insurrection Act actually is an exception that grants the president specific exception on Posse Comitatus. The Posse Comitatus, according to the Insurrection Act, can also protect constitutional rights when states' authorities are unwilling or unable to do so. Did you hear that? The President of the United States, according to Congress giving him power through the Insurrection Act, says, yeah, Posse Comitatus is one thing. You can't have a day-to-day police force, but if local authorities are unable to promote or protect constitutional rights, and if there's an insurrection, rebellion, or domestic violence happening on the street, and federal laws being assaulted and local authorities won't do anything, the president or the executive branch does have the right, according to Congress, to step in and to do that. So before people start clutching their pearls too much and say, oh, Donald Trump's trying to take over martial law, everything that Donald Trump has done, whether you like his policies on immigration or not, everything that Donald Trump has done regarding the use of the National Guard and the threat of bringing 500 Marines down from Camp Pendleton are all protected by the Constitution. According to legal scholars, the military can be used to protect federal property, which are also going after federal property, and it functions if local authorities cannot or will not provide adequate protection. So there are reasons in which the president is going out there, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next couple of days. It is amazing that you have Gavin Newsom out there saying these are mostly peaceful protests. We have it under control. But if you watched last night's interview or press conference with the police chief of Los Angeles, I felt sorry for the guy. He was having to speak so politically correct, and they're trying to say, do you think you need the National Guard? He goes, well, normally we would wait, but it's good to have them because we're a little bit overwhelmed. He was pretty much confessing that it was a good thing they had him. So give me your thoughts. And is this an issue? Is anybody out there, you think, gaining any sympathy for these protesters out there? Are they advancing the cause? And why is it that Democrats continue to rally around? Why is it the Democrats rally around these protesters that wave the Mexican flag on the street? All right, a lot of people commenting on the street. Roger says Posse Comitatus is not a constitutional thing. It was an act passed by 1878 as a result of a civil war. Posse Comitatus does not allow military to perform law enforcement. The Insurrection Act, though, Roger, does, and it overrides Posse Comitatus. That is the one that gives permission. Read the Insurrection Act, Section 10. It is in there. So the president is in authority to do so, and it is passed in 1878. Dennis says, YouTube, good morning. Good morning, Dennis. How are you? Good to have you here. There's quite a few. There's a couple of other exceptions, by the way, to Posse Comitatus. The Insurrection Act is the most blatant there, that allows the president to deploy federal troops to America and federalize the National Guard when they need to suppress insurrections, rebellions, or domestic violence, or when requested by a state, or when federal law cannot be enforced by any other means. So can protect the Insurrection Act. I stuttered there. I need more coffee. The Insurrection Act also protects constitutional rights and says you can nationalize the National Guard or use military when authorities or local authorities or state authorities are unwilling to enforce law. Then the president has the right to do that. The Insurrection Act, Section 10. And that's one of the problems, though, is we have such a convoluted set of laws and laws that get passed later that people read on face value. And then you go, well, there is an exception here, an exception there. Now, Gavin Newsom says he's going to sue the president. He's going to sue the White House because he wants his National Guard back. Now, even if you disagree with bringing the Pendleton Marines down, okay, and you're one of those people that say, I don't believe the Insurrection Act does not count, we're not going to do that. Well, there's nothing in the Constitution that gives, in my estimation, Gavin Newsom any grounds to sue him on the National Guard. It is very clear in the Constitution that the National Guard, while can be deployed or requested by the states, it can also be nationalized or federalized in various different laws that are on the books. It's all there. It can be nationalized very easily. Now, you can disagree on the posse comitatus, but just go to the Insurrection Act and you'll see that there is a little bit of an exception there, and it comes to violence on the streets and when state authorities are unwilling to defend the law and to bring about law and order. So anyway, a little education there, never hurt you. 1878 is the posse comitatus, and there's been other laws passed since posse comitatus, and sometimes they are supportive and sometimes they grant a couple of exceptions, and that is very important for us to discuss and to contemplate as well. Jim says, good morning from Fort Collins. Jeff says, kind of tired of the protesters not being called out for violence and damage and primarily peaceful. Yeah, they're always called primarily peaceful. Aren't they? Burning on the streets. I heard a reporter this morning on I think it was it News Nation? I don't remember what I was listening to earlier this morning. It was on in the background. And Old News Nation said this, that Old News Nation said that there's not very many buildings in downtown Los Angeles that don't look like they have been defamed by protesters and by people out rioting in the streets. So there is I haven't seen a lot of the footage. A lot of the camera angles are coming from helicopters. They're advising press to be careful out there. And so I'm sure today, now that daylight has come up, we'll see the damage that has been done to Los Angeles. But Los Angeles, if you're watching us or listening to us in California, you have nobody to blame but yourself. You have feckless little leaders. Remember Karen Bass showed up at the protest on Saturday, and she was a rabble rouser. She showed up there to try to demand that ICE leave her town. She showed up there. Maxine Waters showed up as well. And so if there was ever an escalation that happened, yeah, you can blame the normal rent-a protesters that happened and the people out there floating around their hatred and their riot gear and their Antifa types. But you can also have to look at the fact that Karen Bass and Maxine Waters were out there also ginning up the troops and rallying them up and trying to get them all pissed off on Saturday, so that by Sunday it was a real tinderbox there. So a lot of this has been ginned up by just the media. A lot of it ginned up by Antifa and the George Soros paid for protesters. And some of this, my friends, is also, you ready for this? Some of this is also my phone's going off as if my alarms are going off. I don't know what that is. Sorry. You normally silence the phone. So a lot of this ginned up also by Maxine Waters. Gavin Newsom saying everything is under control. That is not true. Everything's not under control, Gavin. Is there anything that makes you think that that Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass can be in charge of anything? I mean, you just look at the disaster, which was the preparation leading into the Palisades fire, and now you look at the ginning up of the hatred and the violence on the streets. You look at all the stuff that they're doing, and you say, these guys are, as President Trump said, producer Chad has on the screen, he's too weak to lead. And I think this is something that you have to understand about Gavin Newsom. He can get out there with his coiffed hair and his Aquanet and host some kind of a podcast on occasion, and having that podcast out there proliferate and pontificate as if he's some moderate person, but he's an incompetent boob, and President Trump says he's too weak to lead. He checked in his masculinity and his cojones somewhere. Maybe they were shrunk up by the Aquanet and the hair gel. I'm not sure what happened to him. But you watch him out there declaring that he didn't need the National Guard because he he didn't need the National Guard because it was all under control as there were literal fires on the streets and buildings were being burned and cars being torched. I forgot how many I heard just on the 110 yesterday. I heard that there were it was high single numbers, if not double digit, Colorado Highway Patrol cars that were lit on fire as well yesterday. So a lot of damage out there. The media is going to try to tamp it down. Gavin Newsom's a lying sack of Joea, and Gavin Newsom's saying, "Oh, we could have handled this all by yourself." Gavin Newsom, I don't think you could have handled this by yourself because you are too weak to lead, and your weak leadership showed in the Palisades fire. And remember that cowardly moment where Gavin was pretending to be on his phone and a lady came up to him and she goes, "I want to talk to you." He goes, "I'm talking to the president." Well, let me talk to him. He wasn't talking to the president. Gavin Newsom is a liar. Is what Gavin Newsom is, and that's what you have to understand, that he is a total and unadulterated liar, and he's an incompetent leader, and the state of California is suffering because of his leadership. But hey, elections have consequences, and that's the jackwagon you voted for. All right, back to the Posse Comitatus. So the Insurrection Act, I did get a message here. What act was it? Check out the Insurrection Act, and that does give a variation to the theme because the Posse Comitatus Act, 1878, I believe it said, actually says unless otherwise authorized, the president cannot just willy-nilly, unless these exceptions are made, you can't just send military troops out to police the streets of America, which is true. But there are and were some exceptions granted by our lawmakers, and one of those is the Insurrection Act. In this regards, the National Guard's an easy one. The president has every right to nationalize it in California because Gavin Newsom was not doing so. That is very clear. But the one that was controversial was when President Trump said he's got 500 Marines from Camp Pendleton ready to come down. And people said that violates Posse Comitatus. It does not. Because Posse Comitatus says that there are some exceptions, and the Insurrection Act says the president can deploy federal troops and can also federalize the National Guard. It's the same thing. Insurrection Act gives him the power on the National Guard and the federal troops if it's going to suppress an insurrection, a rebellion, domestic violence, when it's requested our states, or when federal law is not being enforced through ordinary means. So when federal law is not being enforced on a local level, the president can use, according to the Insurrection Act. That is by definition an insurrection. I know that the American left wants you to think that the January the 6th, that riot was a real insurrection. They're actually not enforcing federal law in California, and on the streets of California, they're not enforcing the law. And so the Insurrection Act, Section 10 U.S.C. 251-255, that's the statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus. All right, Arloa said, "Thank you for being so well informed." Well, I wake up early just so I can be informed just for you, Arloa. For everyone else, I don't care. But Arloa, for you, I want to come here and be very, very prepared. Very prepared. For the rest of you, I'm just a slacker. But for Arloa, who's out there, she says, "Thanks for being well informed." I would have no idea about those exceptions. Well, that's the thing. No one knows the exceptions. Everybody gets a talking point, or they heard something at one point, and yet no one does a little bit deeper look into it and say, are there exceptions? Is President Trump really going to be this blatantly bad? He must be the dictator that they say he is. He must be the really bad boy that they say he is, because I heard on the news that Posse Comitatus is very clear. It is, but go to the Insurrection Act. It says it has some exceptions to the rule. But Arloa, that's the thing. They don't want you to ever think about exceptions. They don't want you to think about maybe there's something else that's there, and they just want you to think that it's a blatant slap in the face to the Constitution of the United States. And that's people giving into propaganda. That's people giving into the talking points and saying that President Trump or Hegseth or Kristi Noem or Pam Bondi must not adhere to the Constitution. Well, again, we lay it out there, and you just have to choose as to what you're going to, how you shall participate in the information. Insurrection Act, that's where it's at. All right, let me bring in my first guest of the morning. Glad to have all of you here. Some of you say, how are you getting these messages on the screen? Where are you reading these from? Well, if you're on Facebook, if you're in the YouTube, we're in several Facebook feeds this morning, several X feeds. We're also later on in the day going to be on podcast, Spotify, iHeart, all of Apple Podcasts, etc. If you are out there watching us, listening to us, you can participate live on the show on any of the live streams. And when you do that, doggone it, you're going to be able to pop questions up on the pop comments up, and then producer Chad will get them on the screen for you. That's where we heard from Arloa. And Jim says, Jim just popped in one, said, let's see which Dem candidates for office next year, 2028, starts fundraising for the rioter bail and defense funds. That'd be interesting. I wonder if Kamala Harris, if they arrest people in L.A., I wonder if old Kamala is going to go out there and try to raise some money for them to get them out of jail. I'm just curious about that. All right, there's an interesting study that came out. Nate Silver talked about this in a study, and he talked about manliness. And the bottom line is, young men in America are not so mentally ill that they have decided that they're not going to become, that they will not become Democrats. Nate Silver said this, and I want to bring in my guest. Among voters who report poor mental health, liberals outnumber conservatives 45% to 19%. So liberals, people that identify themselves as liberals or Democrats, I would say, they 45% of them say they have poor mental health. Only 19% of those people who are not that are conservatives say that. Among those who report excellent mental health, conservatives outnumber liberals, and that is 51 to 20. And I want to bring into the program Braden Sorbo. He's the author of a book called Embrace Masculinity, Lifting Men Up in a World Where that pushes them down. Braden Sorbo is in the studio. We bring him to the studio in this. Can I not talk, Delilah? I need more coffee. Help me. It must be Monday. Braden, how are you, sir?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
I'm drinking coffee. I'm doing much better there. A little rant.
There you go.
Let's dive into this. Nate Silver talked about there's these polls out there that the American people look at the American left and they see things like little weak animals. They look at the conservatives, they see lions and they see apex predators. Ann Coulter seemed to have it right a while back that, hate to say it, but liberalism might be a mental disorder, Braden.
I mean, I don't hate to say it. I say it all the time. It is a mental disorder. It's a cop-out for responsibility. You know, that's why so many liberals, like you mentioned in the study, have mental problems, whether that be anxiety, PTSD, depression, OCD, some sort of thing happening in their brain. And we see that they're overly medicated as well. I mean, there are studies that are saying Americans in general are over-medicated. 75% of women are on one form of a prescription drug. Nearly 50% of men are on another form of prescription drug. But we know that obviously, since liberals have a higher tendency to, engage in the pharmaceutical industry simply because of all the mental disorders that they have, they're the ones who are over-medicated. And so it's kind of this perpetuating cycle. But yeah, it is a mental disorder, and I'm not afraid to say it.
We talk about the President Trump, and people say he has that masculine swagger, and that bothers the people on the American left. It bothers the media, and yet it didn't bother my son, who was watching the last campaign while he was still in high school, heading off to college. It didn't bother his friends that were younger and his friends who were older and all getting their first time to vote. They all kind of like the swagger, and you saw that in exit polling. Is that young men are kind of tired of being tamped down and being told that their masculinity is toxic. They're glomming on and really seeming to appreciate the swagger of President Trump.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that's why I wrote the book. People could see it on the shelf behind me. I was looking for something that could relate to people in my generation, something that really spoke to what's going on in America today. And that's the inspiration behind the book. But it's also true to the sense that, like you said, your son and all of his friends are feeling the exact same way. There's kind of this revival within Gen Z, if you will, specifically within the young men, that is unprecedented. I mean, the past election, we had the biggest political divide that we've ever had between the genders. Women have typically leaned a little bit more to the left and men are typically a little bit more to the right. But 2024, the election cycle, we were farther apart than we've ever been, with young women voting overwhelmingly blue and young men voting overwhelmingly red. And so my generation, Gen Z, is the most right-leaning, the farthest right out of any generation in the history of whenever we started polling the generations, which is a crazy statistic to think about. Whereas young women are farther left than any generation previously, which once again is wild to think about because this divide is leading to a lot of conflict between my generation, right? We have this unprecedented kind of situation here. And this navigation that's going to be required is the young men are going to have to stay true to obviously the facts, the objective truth of the world, and eventually people will fall in line. But whether or not that happens by 2026 or even 2028 is still yet to be seen.
The voice, if you're listening later on in the podcast, this is obviously live stream now on the 55 Facebook feeds. I don't know. We're out there and the YouTubes and the Twitters and things. But we'll be on as soon as it's done, it wraps up. It launches up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, of course, the iHeartRadio app as well. So you're listening to the voice of Braden Sorbo. His book is called Embrace Masculinity, Lifting Up Men in a World That Pushes Them Down. Braden is also a 23-year-old actor, author, cultural connector, with over 2 million social media followers. Braden, let me ask you, you're a 23 years old actor, influencer, got a presence out there. What is it that has led you down this path of messaging? Maybe you could be pushing fashion or watches or something else, or maybe be lip syncing like the old TikTokers do. But you're out there talking about masculinity and waging a cultural war. What was the motivation?
Well, you know, I did heavily consider those options, the lip syncing, the shirtless dancing, and then I came to the realization.
So did I. I just thought of that this morning. I was going to lip sync this whole show and shirtless dance. But, you know, if I take my shirt off on the show, Braden, it causes women everywhere to stumble in their walk with the Lord, and it makes me feel bad.
That you can't be doing it. Exactly. I hear you. And the problem is I was thinking the same exact thing, and I went, you know what? I'm straight, so I can't be doing, you know, the lip syncing on TikTok or whatever. Not necessarily my style. But you know, I was just looking for someone my age who had similar experiences to me who I could relate to, because you have the greater voices for the men in the other generations. You have the Jordan Petersons of the world. You know, you have all those people, but there isn't someone in Gen Z. And the problem is people want someone that they can relate to. And I, having been through a lot of the same things that I know plenty of my friends have been through, I can come from that position of, hey, I've been there, rather than, even though I'm trying to help, it seems as though I'm looking down on you because I'm older, have more experience, and have not lived the same life as you. And so it kind of came out of a need of necessity. And so as much as this is the harder road, because frankly, it would be so easy to sit there and not say anything political and just collect followers and collect dollars from social media platforms, I have effectively demonetized myself with this messaging. And so now it is simply a charity case, if you will, to try to help the next generation find their footing.
Embrace masculinity. Talk about it. My son's younger than you by a couple of years, but talk about that embracing of masculinity, the pressure you felt to, and lectures you felt in school or in society that your masculinity is toxic. How did you weigh the pressure of society and education in school and the media telling you don't express your masculinity because it's toxic? How did you reconcile the difference between the need to embrace masculinity? What was the revelation to say, believe the voice in this ear, not the voice in that ear?
Well, it was just seeing that they were all wrong. If you look from an objective stance, you could see that people who suppress the inherent traits that they possess, which would be true masculinity, for the record, for the listeners and the watchers at home, is responsibility. It is protection and provision. It is caring for others above yourself, sacrificing yourself for the good of your family. Bad masculinity, toxic masculinity, is the suppression of those traits, because everyone knows when you take things up and you ball it up and stuff it deep down, what happens is it comes out negatively. And so when you take the natural urges of wanting to protect and provide for people and ball it up and stuff it way deep, dark down, something else has to replace it. And what we see is a lot of men find replacement with dominance, obsession, control, manipulation. And that is what the media spotlights and goes, this is what masculinity is, and it's toxic. And the fact of the matter is that is toxic, right? Abuse, control, manipulation, those things are inherently bad. And those things are not inherently masculine traits. And so looking from an objective stance, looking at how the media portrays men in Hollywood culture. You have movies, you have sitcoms, you have TV shows where they make fathers seem like they're bumbling idiots, they're replaceable, that men are expendable, that this 5'2", 80-pound girl can take down a 300-pound bodybuilding guard without any form or training, that men are just stupid and replaceable and worthless. You have the music industry, which teaches that life itself is inherently valueless, that degeneracy and debauchery are mainstream, normal, and worth celebrating. Go sleep with whoever you want. Go party, go clubbing every weekend, stay up till 5 a.m. getting plastered. Those things are all good. They don't diminish your inherent value when everyone knows that they do. You have the mainstream media, the news industry portraying men, especially white men, as the villains of every story. You have the judicial system listing Arab, Mexican, and even some black men as white men to villainize white men, to make people hate each other based on skin color alone. And looking at all this from an objective stance, it doesn't take more than a few brain cells, and I know because I speak from experience, to realize that that is a dangerous path, and that is nothing but self-destructive. And so in trying to become better myself, I've found that taking responsibility is the first step, and that is the first step that so many people are afraid to take until now. This is why we have a revival within the church. I mean, we have the largest return to Christianity that we've ever seen, at least in the modern era, right? Young men specifically are returning to traditional Orthodox Christianity, Catholic, Orthodox, things like that, in droves. I mean, the Diocese of Los Angeles this past Easter had a 34% uptick in confirmations. And from 2023 to 2024, there was another 20 to 30% uptick. So people are coming back. And it's refreshing to see, because I was simply ahead of the curve by doing it a year or two before everybody else.
The voice of Braden Sorbo, if you're listening to the podcast later in the day, if you're watching live, you see it on the screen. Braden Sorbo is the author of a book called Embrace Masculinity, Lifting Men Up in a World That Pushes Them Down. Braden, one more quick question. As a 23-year-old Gen Zer out there, you've obviously written a book. We talk about kind of this revelation or this realization that came to you. Obviously, it's in a book form. But I'm reading, talk about the younger generation. All of us, it's old guys as well. We're on our phones. We look at screen time way too much. But we joked about the TikTok, the shirtless dancing, the lip syncing. You live more than I ever did in a world of screens. People will say that a lot of pornography, liberalism being pushed down your throat in the media all the time. And we look around, and not just your age, but my age, we're all looking at our phones all the time. How is it that this message gets out to other people of your generation? How do you sort through the noise and get them to read a book and get them to hear this message when, again, many of them have a phone addiction and are looking at other things on their phone?
Well, it comes from their own desire to be better. You can't force people to fix their lives. They have to want to do it themselves. You can simply offer a solution. And that's what I'm aiming to do with the book. And the book, for the record, is not just for young men. It is for young women as well, just in a different way. This is as much a guide for young men as it is a discernment tool for young women to help them find the good people in life to surround yourself with, because we know that you are your closest circle of people. And so as much as it is a handbook, as much as it is a guide, it's a discernment tool. And for young men struggling online with porn, for example, 85% of men in America have admitted to watching porn in the past month, many of whom also consume pornography weekly. You have 10% of Gen Z women on OnlyFans, which is a porn website. Right, 10% of women in Generation Z, 1.2 million young women, selling their bodies online and perpetuating the cycle of pornography. So yes, how do we fix it? Who do we get this in front of to make a difference? And the fact of the matter is, the young men are going to have to want to change. And they're going to do that by watching your show, by reading my book, by involving themselves more and more within their church and within their community. And what will happen is that will have a positive ripple effect on the rest of their community and eventually their country. Because we know when young men, or when men in general, get together, cities are built, communities are formed, and countries are established. And so what we want to do is we want to encourage as many young people as possible to simply give an attempt, to simply try stepping out of their comfort zone and reading something that might be a little bit counter-ethical to what they personally believe, because we know a lot of people are liberals. We know a lot of people have this ideology of abortion is good and borders, who needs them, all these things. And so we want people to challenge their own preconceived notions. And that's the goal, but we can't force them to do it.
Braden Sorbo, the book is called Embrace Masculinity, Lifting Men Up in a World That Pushes Him Down. I'm guessing if folks want to get the book, Amazon, all the usual suspects. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, but I will say sorbostudios.com is the website that I recommend the most. That is my family's website. Sign up for our newsletter there. And if you use my last name Sorbo at checkout, you'll get 20% off, which you won't get anywhere else.
Sorbostudio.com. Have you going to stick with the authoring and the speaking, or are you still in the acting world?
Well, I think I'm too far along in the authoring and speaking to be considered by Hollywood for many major pictures. So doing the speaking world, if anyone has events they'd love me to come out to, I love being able to preach the word to people in person.
I got a long form podcast that we call The Critical Mission. I'm going to reach out to your people, get you on that one, and do a long form with you and talk about what you're doing, sir.
Please.
SorboStudios.com. Braden Sorbo. Appreciate you coming on the program this morning, running a few minutes late. Glad to have you here. Hey, very quickly, I want to go to my next guest, but I also want to remind you about our charity work in Rwanda. I'm heading out for Rwanda this week. Riverspromise.org is our website, riverspromise.org. Check out the website. If you donate today, donate this week, I will personally be able to deliver those funds over there. And $30 feeds a child 2 meals a day. For a month, 65 feeds a man, sends them to school. Go to our charity website. You see the name behind me if you forget it, riverspromise.org. Riverspromise.org. I will be traveling later this week en route to Rwanda, but I'd love to take the love that you share over there with me. And riverspromise.org. Help us feed a child. Help us change a life. Riverspromise.org will give you one to the whole story. All right, running behind Mark Kwan is very patient in this in the green room, waiting to hop on the stage. Mark, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
Well, it's good to have you. We're running behind schedule. I saw producer Chad send a message. I'm not sure you saw that, but we are running behind. Thanks for your patience, sir. First of all, we had you on around tax season about your book, latest book. Why don't you let's do the book plug right up front.
All right. Be smart, pay zero taxes. I was a financial advisor for 15 years. I used to train financial advisors and CPAs. I was the financial advisor for many CPAs, and nobody knew how to avoid taxes legally, and nobody knew how to retire early. So I was like, this system's rigged. It sucks. Nobody's going to retire. Everyone's going to work until they die. I resigned from the financial industry. This is my fourth book. I was actually at the request of Newsmax, emailed me in the early of last year and asked me if I could write a book to prove that ordinary Americans can use the buy, borrow, die strategy. There it is.
Mark Kwan, again, we'll go through the book again. That's not the only plug, but I want people to kind of know where you're coming from. If your name sounded familiar, Mark Kwan, author of a book called Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, Use the Buy, Borrow, Die strategy to get rich and stay rich. I have you on here, Mark, to talk about that big, beautiful bill. Elon Musk evidently doesn't think it's all that big and beautiful. He thinks it's ugly, and he thinks the president of the United States should be impeached. Now, he's deleted all that, and maybe he was off his ketamine that day. I'm not exactly sure what was going on. Could have been a little issue there. But let's talk about this big, beautiful bill. There's talk of the people in the Senate, Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, say it's got to be divided up into two. We're not going to give him one big, beautiful bill. Is it a disgusting abomination, as Elon says, Mark?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I mean, middle America needs the help more than anything. And again, taxes were going up. The original Tax Cuts and Jobs Act helped middle America. It was very good. It's doubled the standardized deduction. There's a lot of things that help everyone. Everybody of every income was helped with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act previously with Trump. They just extended some of those things. And obviously, I want to see no taxes on Social Security. Social Security was never supposed to be taxed in the first place. It would be theft to actually tax it because it wasn't supposed to be taxed. No tax on middle tips, no tax on overtime would be amazing for middle America. I mean, that's it. I mean, but at the end of the day, people are a little bit in denial that the United States is in trouble. We can't be $50 trillion in debt and be okay as a country. So, I mean, I'm going to say that the United States has way too much debt. That is certain, but we need to try and at least get the economy going. America First agenda, bring manufacturing here, dominate in Bitcoin, dominate in artificial intelligence, dominate in manufacturing. Those are the four areas the United States did do. Big, beautiful bill is definitely helping that.
some people well, it's very convoluted. Like you follow the tax codes and pay zero taxes. It's a lot of codes out there to follow, and you can get in trouble with the IRS. Congress has set it's up to also be very convoluted. You have a reconciliation bill, which is what this is. It allows certain things to happen, but other things can't happen. But it helps avoid the 60 vote threshold in the U.S. Senate. Then you have a rescission bill, which is going to have to come back. Then you have the actual appropriations budget bill. Congress has made this very convoluted, Mark. And a lot of folks say, yeah, you say you'll get to it the next time, because Republicans say, we got to do the reconciliation. Then they'll do 2 rescissions. Then we'll do another reconciliation. It gets very confusing, Mark. That's why people think this is a bunch of BS. It's just politicians trying to mark time. What do you say?
I would definitely agree with that. Here's the thing about it. It reminds me of let's sign the bill so we can see what's in it. Nobody actually read the bill again. They never read the bill. Okay. I think we should make a law, start it tomorrow, that says if you sign the bill, you have to, under penalty of perjury, that you signed and fully understand the bill. Right. I think we should do that tomorrow. But they never read the bill. And I see why Elon's not happy with it. Nobody reads the bill. Our politicians see it's really hard to grow an economy. It takes work. It takes jobs. It takes manufacturing. It takes the hard work. You know what's really easy for a politician? Just print more money and ignore the problem. That's how it's been forever. I mean, we were $4 trillion in debt not that long ago, and now we're $36 trillion in debt. Politicians are lazy. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the work. It's just easier. Printing money is very addictive. You can literally just put some numbers into the computer and say, oh, we're doing so great. We have more manufacturing. We have more jobs. Politicians are lazy and incompetent, so they would rather just print money, which is just theft. They'd rather tax us first, and then they print money, which is just theft, but it's hidden theft. That's what politicians do.
All right, Mark, you've written a book that's for the people. No taxes. Talking about be smart, pay zero taxes, and that's for the people. Politicians oftentimes don't do things for the people. But I want you to help us understand things, and you kind of come down to the side of the people. You got Elon, who had the big blow up because I guess he thinks that we're not reducing the deficit enough, and we still have too much debt, which is probably true. And then you have President Trump, who says you're never going to get rid of this in our lifetime if we don't grow the economy. The big, beautiful bill seems to be focused on what we'd call growth. Elon wants it to be to focus more on cuts. They say, well, that's got to come in rescission. So you got a growth mindset, you got a cut mindset going on. And a lot of us in America are going, hey, I don't know what that means, but how does it affect my pocketbook? Why don't you speak to the people? Because some people say we can grow our way. Some people say we can't out of this. What do we need to be doing?
You need to raise your financial IQ. Forget everything you ever learned about finance. Just delete it and start with this strategy called buy, borrow, die. Okay, buy, borrow, die is very effective because you're fighting 3 major headwinds here. One, you only have so many hours to work, so you have to work hard every day. You have to go traffic, work hard. You have to fight taxation, and you have to fight inflation. Buy, borrow, die is the most effective way to build wealth, and anyone can use it. We've been proving this over the past 4 years. I've been coaching ordinary Americans on how to do this for 4 years. Buy, borrow, die is you buy an asset, you never sell it. Rather than have to go to work and work hard every day, you borrow from that asset to buy another asset. You don't have to spend your time. You pay 0 taxes when you create the money, and you fight inflation with inflation. Those are the 3 things that are pushing people into poverty every day: is their time, their taxation, and inflation. Buy, borrow, die. It's used by billionaires because you're circumventing the U.S. tax system, and you don't have to work for the money. Again, you're not taught this in schools. Financial advisors don't understand it. CPAs don't understand it. You can even go to the University of Southern California, where the strategy was coined, and they won't teach it to you there. You can go to Pepperdine, Yale, Harvard. They won't teach you this strategy, but it's the most effective strategy ever for building wealth. I use it. It's building my wealth. All my friends use it. My family uses it. And we have about 500 students that we taught it to right now. And the funny thing is, you go to rich people, they don't understand it either. That's the crazy part. Even the rich people are like, what? Right? Retirement accounts aren't going to work. You're going to work until you die. If you believe you need to save, work hard, go to school, get a good job, pay your taxes, save money, get good credit, put your money in a retirement account so you can retire one day, you're going to work until you die. I want Americans to know that. First of all, just realize that first and realize you're not going to win doing that. It's impossible, mathematically impossible. And it's also mathematically impossible to get out of debt. The United States, if you add up Medicare and just Medicare and Social Security, that's $75 trillion of unfunded liabilities in the next 75 years.
Wow.
Just those two things alone, it's impossible for the United States to stay solvent. Why do you think Bitcoin and gold and precious metals are so popular? Because the smart money, they're buying assets. They're buying gold and precious metals. They're buying real estate. They're buying Bitcoin. They're buying anything with limited supply. And they're doing it with debt. They're buying and borrowing because they don't have to work for the money. This is how people are getting rich. And this is how I'm getting rich too. I used to be super poor. I was poor my entire life. And now I'm not poor anymore. This is the strategy that I've used.
All right, Mark J. Kwan, author of the book called Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, use the buy, borrow, die strategy to get rich and stay rich. Mark, very quickly, some folks hear this kind of stuff of, I need to do this. And then they say, well, once I get to this level, I'm broke right now, Mark. I don't have any money right now. Once I get this or get this or get this, then I can start this program or kind of start this way of thinking. What do you say to those people? Because you're making it sound as if folks can jump right into this system no matter where they're at financially. They can start today. Everybody can start today.
They can. It's in the book. You can start with $100 invested in a brokerage account.
Boom. Just like that.
Just $100. Yes. $100. By the way, everybody, I don't care if they're rich. I coach a lot of rich people to avoid taxes, but I've started them the same way. I'm like, put $100 in a brokerage account. It's all in the book. Everything's there. Yeah. I run a financial education company that does this. So $100. Remember, if you don't do this, you're going to work until you die. That's a good reason to do it.
The tax code's all bloated out there, my friends. You're working to pay taxes, working to pay off the credit card. Maybe it is time to try something else. Mark J. Kwan, author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, used by the buy, borrow, die strategy to get rich and stay quick. Mark, I have one more quick question for you. If you were up in Washington, D.C., and you could advise these politicians, because you've kind of been a financial planner on the street, you've been on kind of working at the grassroots level, what is it that you think that Brother Elon, Brother Donald are missing out here? And you would say, hey, guys, I know you're upset about this or upset about that, but make sure the big, beautiful bill, or make sure we're also focusing on this. What is that thing that really you think they need to be focused on?
I think they need to pass the big, beautiful bill, personally. But again, it doesn't matter what the government does. Every American needs to take 100% responsibility for their own finances and stop relying on their CPA and stop relying on their financial advisor and realize their 401k is not going to work. Take personal responsibility for everybody out there and don't rely on the government for anything anymore. That's my advice to all Americans, because the government can only do two things. It can tax you and it can print money. That's all they can do. We can grow manufacturing, but at the end of the day, take responsibility, full responsibility for your finances, and take control of it, learn this strategy, and get financially independent.
Mark J. Kwan, author of the Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes book. Mark, if folks want to buy the book, Amazon, wherever fine books are sold, you're also out there. People can, I think you also have some teaching out there. People can kind of follow along. How do they catch up with you, sir?
They can go to the perfectportfolio.com is our website. Amazon, there's plenty of ways to contact my team. I literally I'll coach thousands of Americans, middle Americans this year, on how to get financially independent using this strategy.
Mark J. Kwan, again, Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. I appreciate you hopping on, sir. Thanks for running a few minutes overtime and waiting a little extra patiently, sir. A gold star for you.
Well, pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
ThePerfectPortfolio.com is his website, ThePerfectPortfolio.com. That is Mark J. Kwan. That is the name of the book. Some of you, I saw put it together that Braden Sorbo is the son of Kevin Sorbo, the son of Sam Sorbo, great actors. And appreciate you noticing that. I never want to introduce a 23-year-old young man or anybody. I want them to stand alone, and he's standing on his own. He did a great job of that interview. I will get him on the critical mission probably when I get back. And by the way, good Lord willing, we're going to release, producer Chad, I promise you I'll get it to you. Some new content for the Critical Mission podcast. It's been a while since we did the Critical Mission. Since then, producer Chad and I launched this thing. And then I had we were taking some time away. I had a lot of tabs open in my life, busy. But hopefully I'm going to get some content out on the Critical Mission. If you don't follow us on the Critical Mission podcast, you should. When you see the House of Lakey or the Lakey Unleashed thing, that means we are talking politics. But the Critical Mission talks purpose, and it tells stories based on the fact that the two most important days of a person's life, the day they're born and the day they figure out why. That's the one I want to get Braden on. And we've a lot of great interviews on there. And we have a brand new way of telling the stories that's coming out soon. So if you do not subscribe, or if you have put dust on your subscription to the Critical Mission podcast, dust it off, because we're going to put some content out on that here real soon. All right, good to have you here. We're waiting on Dr. James Thorpe to show up. He has not arrived into the building yet. He is our next guest. I'm hoping he shows up here soon. Could be running a few minutes late himself. My name is Jimmy. Glad to have you here. While we wait, I want to remind you about Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. Homeswithsherry.com. Listen, it can get kind of stressful making the right decision, because you don't want everyone to leave real estate money on the table, right? You want to make sure you get your house priced right. You want to make sure you're not pricing it so high that no one wants to buy it. You also want to make sure you're not undercutting the market and pricing it too low. You want to make sure that everything you do is right. You don't want to put too much money in your home if you're not going to get the ROI on it. Maybe there's some things you do need to do to get the ROI on. Listen, when it comes time to listing a home, you really need to have that outside set of eyes, and it's an eye of an expert like Sherry Cree, who understands. She comes to the table with this understanding that your home can create generational wealth. Your home is oftentimes the asset, the tool, the major tool that you can use to grow and pass down generational wealth. So listen, you want to make the right decision. Don't leave money on the table. Do what you got to do to make the right decision. Sherry Cree will help you do that, whether it's just kind of looking at the home. What do you need to get it ready to show? Maybe she would advise you to wait 6 months. Wait till your neighborhood's going to come back up, and you're going to you can make a lot more money based on market trends. Maybe it's, hey, move now, man. Homes are flying off there's bidding wars just down the street. Do this. She can get all that perspective to you. And listen, if you're ready to buy a home, Sherry wants to help you get in the right place. Homeswithsherry.com, the place for your family, the place for your children, the place that's going to be the right neighborhood for you. She can just update you on the whole thing. It's not just about a one-time transaction. She wants to do so good by you that she becomes your realtor for life. She's committed to become your realtor for life. And even when your kids grow up and they need a realtor, they'll say, man, Sherry did my parents right. I want to have her help me get the starter home. Listen, she'll strategize with you, and she's just a fantastic person. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. I mentioned that I'm returning to Rwanda in the next several days, and Sherry and her husband were there with me a couple of years ago, and I will bring greetings to the people of Rwanda on behalf of Sherry. She's a great lady, and you need to go to her website, homeswithsherry.com. Again, it's generational wealth that home, that real estate transaction can create. Make sure you have somebody that understands that it's not about a one-time transaction, that what you do today and this year in real estate, buying or selling, could really affect your portfolio, your savings account, your bank account, your children and your grandchildren. It ain't just about sticking a sign in the yard. It's about creating generational wealth. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Make sure you reach out to her and have a conversation. Mention Jimmy Lakey when you do. All right. Yeah, Braden, Arloa says, I noticed his last name. I wonder if there was an association. Glad to have it confirmed. His dad is great. Yeah. I'm going to get him on the Critical Mission podcast. I'll reach out probably when we get back and let him tell the story about how a 23-year-old, as he said, has gone so far down the path in speaking. And as he said, preaching the word, that he has, he says he's probably not, he's kind of persona non grata when it comes to the Hollywood types. And that's probably absolutely true. All right, I got a question for you. I went to the, right over in an area that not far from, there's a brand new Chick-fil-A that opened. Brand new Chick-fil-A opened. Everybody go Chick-fil-A? And so I went, and the line was around the building. Nobody had seen a Chick-fil-A in their life, but I wanted some grilled chicken nuggets or something. I said, I'll give it a shot. And so the line to drive through was too long. I walked into the Chick-fil-A. I ordered grilled chicken nuggets is what I did. A little for you. They're greasy, but they're decent. They're very expensive. But I need the grill. Ordered the grilled chicken nuggets. And as I'm leaving my to-go bag, I see, because I think of Chick-fil-A, I think of a Chick-fil-A sauce, the ranch, and maybe a Polynesian. They have a whole sign of all these sauces that they have, a whole bunch of sauces that they have in their restaurant that you can get on your chicken. And it was like 7 or 8 sauces. And I said, who knew you needed so many sauces for chicken? And then I read this story that the average person has 8 different kinds of sauce in their refrigerator. How many sauces do you have in your refrigerator? Do you have the A1 sauce, the Heinz 57? Do you have the mustard? Do you have you start the ranch dressing, the Thousand Island? How many sauces or dressings do you have in your refrigerator? The hot sauce, that's in there, the barbecue sauce. All these sauces, it's really obsessive how many sauces. And then producer Chad and I were talking at the pre-show meeting about a store that we both know of in which there's an entire, it's probably 30 feet of just sauces. And even the big grocery stores, just the barbecue sauce section alone, it's huge. We have become a sauce-obsessed culture. Now, some of you, when I say the sauce, some of you are obsessed with the sauce, and we're talking the booze. And I know who you are. It's not producer Chad and I, not at all, but it's some of you. Some of you got a problem there. So I got a question for you on the sauce. We have become sauce obsessed, and it breaks my heart to see that I'd have to choose. But if you had to choose a sauce, and everybody has an average of 8 different sauces in your refrigerator, if you had to choose, let's say your top 3 sauces that you're going to go to a deserted island, you're going to have food, but you can only take 3 different sauces. What are the sauces that you would take from your refrigerator? Now, I'm thinking of my refrigerator. We have ranch because I had a son, been a single dad for a long time, and ranch is a staple. You got to have the ranch, and you got to have the ketchup. Now, we also, if you're going to count spreads, and I think you do mustard sauce or mustard. We got the mustard. I know we have a mayo, and I think we usually have like a Miracle Whip. There's 5. I know we always have hot sauce or picante or something like that, usually 2 varieties. We also have barbecue sauce there. Now, it's not necessarily in the fridge, but I like it. It's a sauce from Africa called akabanga. I have akabanga. I'm just sitting here thinking without any work at all. I probably have 10 to 12 different kind of sauces in the fridge. And I'm an empty nest single dad. I mean, my son's off, but we have the sauce there. Let me ask you, what kind of sauces do you have, and what are the top 3 for you? If you were going to have top 3 dipping sauces that you would take to a deserted island, what would those top 3 sauces be? You know, when I go to Africa and I'm heading out this week, one of the things, you ever go with me, and you're always welcome to email me. We'd always take public trips. If you want to go to Africa with me, let me know. Info at River. Just send me an email. Info at Jimmy Lakey. We'll get over to the River's Promise side of the hallway. And yeah, Roger says they sell akabanga at King Supers, which is the Colorado Kroger. You know, Roger, I saw you posted that a while back. And you know, for a while, I had the distribution rights to akabanga in America. With the man who started the company there, he said, you take it to America. And I kind of had the rights to it in an informal handshake agreement. And he said, let me know what you want to do. And I just didn't have it. I was young enough and smart enough, but I didn't have investors enough to do it. And I didn't do it. I bet I could still get them. Yeah, I bet I could. Anyway, akabanga is fantastic. But when I go to Africa, one of the best things over there is when you order fries. I don't eat a lot of fries here, but you order fries there. They bring you fries, very fresh, nice, good fries. And they will bring ketchup and ketchup and mayo, and very good mayo, and akabanga. And there is nothing better than eating French fries in Africa, in Rwanda, with akabanga, a little mayo, some ketchup. It's delicious. All right, there's your question of the day. If there were 3 top dipping sauces, which ones would you take to a deserted island? I'm thinking just by mind, I've got like 12 different sauces in my refrigerator. And which ones would you take? Which ones would you take? Would you take there, Roger? You like the akabanga? Which 3 sauces, if you could limit your life down to 3 sauces on a deserted island, which 3 sauces would you take? Roger, I'm reading the comment. Roger Cree Micro has an interview I heard with him on it was a little personal conversation going on there. Anyway, what sauces would you take out there if you could only take 3? Which ones would they be? What are your favorite sauces that you would like to have out there from the dipping sauce? Love to hear from you on that. Your favorite dipping sauce. I'm going to take the ketchup. I think I like the ketchup. And I'm going to take the ketchup. Boy, and or maybe I don't take the ketchup. Maybe I just take a good hot sauce because that's the tomato base. And then if I take the hot sauce and maybe a ranch has a different flavor or a mayo, and then if I bring the akabanga, I think I could be good. I probably could be good with mayo, ketchup, and akabanga because you can create new flavors there. I'm just saying, that's just me. Top 3 dipping sauces you would take to a deserted island. And is akabanga, see, we get down parsing details here. Is akabanga really a dipping sauce? You only do it's a chili oil, so I don't know. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. Top story of the day is hell has broken loose in Los Angeles. And I think the great question I have for you all is anybody gaining sympathy? Does it help their cause at all when these criminals burning things in the street are waving the Mexican flag? Does anybody think that they're here? Again, how do you protest? We're pissed off that ICE and Tom Homan and the Trump administration are shipping people down to Mexico, and yet you come here and you wave the Mexican flag. How is it that these godforsaken, godless, soulless Democrats like Gavin Newsom say that the rioting is under control when right there on the video monitor, I see them throwing rocks off bridges at police officers on the 110? These Democrats live in a delusion as to whether or not these are nice people out on the streets. They're delusional. They're also delusional as to whether this is mostly peaceful protesting. And I say good for President Trump for saying we're going to nip this thing in the bud and we're going to get the National Guard out there and we're going to bring in Marines from Pendleton if we could. Yeah, some people say posse comitatus. You can't do that, President Trump. Read the Insurrection Act. There actually are some exceptions in which you can deploy U.S. military. The National Guard is U.S. military in connection with the Army. So that's the U.S. military, but the National Guard is under the control of the states, but it can be taken and nationalized by the president. That is in the law. And the Insurrection Act, Section 10, USC 251-255, is the most significant statutory exception to posse comitatus, and it allows the president to deploy federal troops, federalize the National Guard when it comes to if they're going to suppress insurrection, rebellions, domestic violence, or when requested by a state, or when federal law is not being enforced through ordinary means in the state and local level. The Insurrection Act allows the president to deploy federal troops and to federalize the National Guard. That's the Insurrection Act. And it also allows the president to deploy federal troops and federalize the National Guard to protect constitutional rights when states are unwilling or unable to protect the constitutional rights. The president then has the right to federalize and deploy the federal guards and federalize the national troops. So there are some exceptions out there. Gavin Newsom I hope Gavin Newsom keeps flopping his jaws. Hope he keeps flapping his jaws out there and continues to make stupid comments about this was all under control, because this was not under control. The Democrats have never found a riot or an insurrection, if you will, a true insurrection that they can that they could control. They've never found any use for quelling an insurrection. Remember, as President Trump to say, you could have problems on January the 6th. He went to Marion Bowser and Nancy Pelosi and said, you want the National Guard? I'll approve it for you. No, we don't want the National Guard. And then January the 6th happened. Then they kvetched that it never happened yet. President Trump was like, hey, if you get the National Guard here early, we'll probably avoid some kind of a problem. All right. Ray says this on the YouTube. Jimmy, it's ironic that they fight the American government, but they won't stand up to the government of the country they left. Isn't that interesting? They come here, wave the Mexican flag, and they wave that Mexican flag as if they have pride in the narco-terrorist state of Mexico. They got all this pride going on out there, and they want to come change our government. If you got all this Mexican pride and you're waving the flag, why don't you get your ass back to Mexico and stand up to your government of this land that you love to fly their flag? Why don't you get your ass back there and protest your government? It's obviously something in that hellhole of a nation you came from that you didn't like, so you fled to America. So if you're going to flee to America and yet you're still going to wave the colors of the hellhole you came from, then why come to here to try to change us? We don't need your changing. We didn't ask for your ass to come here. Get your ass back to where you came from and use that same courage that you seemingly have, those same cojones that let you stand up and put a mask on your face and protest the government. Why don't you try that crap in Mexico City? You cowards. Why don't you get your ass down there and try that nonsense? Now, I understand A lot of this is agitators that are pretending to be local citizens that are bothered by this. But there are people out there that start waving the Mexican flag and say, down with Tom Homan. And you're like, well, if you're that proud of Mexico, why did you leave there? Why are you fighting for us to send people back to this glorious land that you still want to wave the flag on? Why, you're still waving the flag as if it's some sanctuary. So why don't you take your butt back to the sanctuary? And if there's faults and problems there, why don't you go stand up to them, have the courage to do that rather than trying to be brave on the streets of Los Angeles. All right, good to have all of you here. Ray says, preach it, brother Jimmy. You're welcome. We're going to take up a collection now. Every head bowed, every eye closed. We're going to take up a collection. At the end of every good sermon, you need to pass the plate. No, that's a very serious thing. Is there anybody that has sympathy and buys this crap? You got Gavin Newsom flapping his lips. The Aquanet has gotten to his brain. What is he put? I don't think it's beef tallow on his hair. He's putting straight chemical, and it's gone straight to his brain. It's past some kind of a barrier, and he's out there saying we have it all under control here, while rocks are being thrown at his officers. Literally, he says, we need the National Guard out of here. And he says, well, President Trump's bringing chaos by sending the National Guard. The police chief last night at a press conference, when asked that question, he goes, the National Guard's barely here yet. He says, this escalated before the National Guard is still being deployed. We just got the order this morning. It's not like they can wave their hand. They got to deploy. They got to get here. Well, I mean that. Why is it that we're supposed to have any sympathy for people that stand on the streets all bravely and wave the Mexican flag and tell us what a hellhole America is, and yet you're protesting that if you don't like America and you think it's a hellhole, we're going to send you back to the country whose flag that you are waving, and now you're kvetching about it. I say if you're going to wave the Mexican flag here in America, then that's a symbol of where you're asking, deport me, take me there. That's all I'm saying. I don't care if that's you're here now, and it's time that if you're all that brave to stand up to Tom Homan, what are you afraid of your own government? You cowards, get your ass out of here. We didn't ask for you. There's some great immigrants. My son is a beautiful immigrant. I love immigration. I love migration, but I like it legal, and I don't like people taking to the streets and destroying American property while pretending to be. I mean, obviously, they're already pretending to be patriots out there. They're waving Mexican flags, which makes it look like a foreign invader has come here. And if you're out there burning up an American city, and you're waving a Mexican flag, or you're touting the virtue of some hellhole in South Africa, then is there not some? This is why the president can call it an insurrection. This is why they can incite the Insurrection Act by saying, man, these people obviously are here thinking they're representing some foreign government. And this is almost a pseudo of an invasion by people who have infiltrated our country. And anybody out there waving participating in these the same way they participated in Colombia, anti-American protest and anti-Jewish protest. If you're participating in Los Angeles, I hope Tom Homan sends a couple of extra paddy wagons and put some of these gangbangers and pathetic thugs right out of our country. That's where they should be. Another person, Dave, says, amen, brother Jimmy, preach it. Evidently, I've got a good sermon going on here this morning. I don't know. It's so transparent to me, and I think this is so easy because it's such an 80-20 issue, and the Democrats buy right into it. Rather than squelching the violence, you're playing into the violence, and they're getting off on the wrong message again. They probably had a big message maybe about the big, beautiful bill. They have other things, but they keep hijacking themselves by supporting gangbangers and terrorists that have invaded our country. They just can't help themselves. I mean, if the Democrats would have been focused and continue to focus on kind of a counter narrative of the government, the economy, maybe they would have had a chance. But when you start defending terrorists waving Mexican flags and gangbangers, by the way, the people that got deported, it all started with a rumor in California. This is according to Bill Belushi of Fox News. He said the riots supposedly started because there was a rumor that ICE was about to raid a Home Depot and get all the workers that were there for a job. Well, that was wrong. They were using a local ICE office to stage that was near the Home Depot, but word went out on the intergoogles that they were going to raid the Home Depot and take all the little nice Mexican lawn workers from there. And no, they were going after. There's people that have been convicted of rape and murder that have kicked out of their country, kicked out of our country, and they've crossed back in. That's who they were going after in LA when these riots started. These were back to the worst of the worst. These were not Now, were there other people? Yes, it's called collateral damage. If you're hanging out with a criminal gangbanger who's here illegally and ICE comes for him and you don't have your papers, well, you know what? Save us a trip next time. When we get to, we're going to just take you early. Nothing wrong with that, but that's what's happening. And the Democrats, rather than staying on message, are now circulating back to this. They tried to distance themselves from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her defund ICE and get rid of ICE and abolish ICE. They try to distance themselves from that kind of messaging, and then, boy, they just can't help themselves. They see the smoke. You know, Democrats are crazy. Remember the Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota? His wife said in the mansion there in Minneapolis that she would open the windows during the George Floyd riots just so she could get the smell of burning rubber in there. Remember that? I wonder who in California is sniffing the burning rubber. I wonder if Timmy Walz is taking his wife out to L.A. for a romantic weekend away. Hey, honey, let's go out to L.A. We'll open the windows up and you can smell the burning rubber again. Woo! Timmy Walz is like, yeah, break out those condom machines. Mama's going to smell some burning rubber. But the sad thing, he's got to go to the boys' restroom to find the condom machines. That's a long story. And those weren't condom machines. Those were tampon machines, right? Okay. It would be more apropos if he had a condom machine in the boys' restroom, not a tampon machine. Anyway, good. I wouldn't put it past it. I mean, you think of it, Tim Walz went to China, like Bernie Sanders went to China for his honeymoon. Didn't Tim Walz go there for like an anniversary or something? Tim Walz went to China. And so now we know Tim Walz's wife loves the smell of burning tires in the street. So I'm guessing perhaps that this would be fantastic that Timmy, pack up your insane ass and go out to L.A. and have Gavin give you, I don't know, some condo loft on the street, and you can smell burning tires while you and your wife have a romantic getaway. That'd be good. All right, Jim has a great point. How will these riots affect the 2028 Olympics, or will the International Olympic Committee embrace the rioters? Jim, there's something about rioting that the left allows rioting and dereliction and defecation and just nasty stuff on the streets as long as they think it plays to their political narrative. But when it comes time to so remember they cleaned up the streets of San Francisco when there was a big summit there. There was a big thing, and they cleaned up all the streets and the homeless, and the poop was all gone. Remember in Denver, Jared Polis, our foolish governor here, had allowed homelessness and defecation to happen on the streets post-COVID, and rioting was happening and all the stuff in Denver. And then all of a sudden they decided Major League Baseball was woke, and they decided to take the All-Star game away from Atlanta. And Denver said, we'll take it here. And all of a sudden, all the stuff that Jared Polis had allowed, violence, rioting, crap, literally crap, human feces on the street, all the stuff that Jared Polis had allowed, he decided he was not going to allow it anymore. Democrats, like anybody else, can clean up the streets and they can bring order to their city when they want to, but they only do it when it's politically expedient. And Gavin Newsom thinks this is politically expedient. The problem with Gavin Newsom is he's an idiot, and he thinks it's politically expedient, and it is to the California crazed Democrats and the radicals out there and Trump haters, but to middle America, this is not politically expedient. So again, they can't help themselves on messaging. Just about the time that Gavin Newsom does a podcast and he gets his hair just right so he can portray himself to be some moderate type of a Democrat out there, just about the time he gets that said and gets that messaging and that image spun, he comes out and starts defending the people waving the Mexican flag and the gangbangers on the street. So, Jim, to answer your question, Jared Polis, Karen Bass, they'll do their best to have the rioters all cleaned up the same way Jared Polis had the poop cleaned up off the street in time for the All-Star game. They can do it very, very quickly, and that's what I think they're going to do. All right, all quiet on the Elon front. Elon's been quiet. He deleted a lot of his messages. His dad said that the guy's got PTSD for being in the White House. We'll unpack that tomorrow. His dad says his son said some stupid stuff. Elon probably knows he did and did this. Was it Trey Gowdy last night? I had on the background on Sunday Night in America. And Gowdy had this great couple of lines on Elon Musk. And I like brother Elon, and I've liked him. But they said Trey said they say he's a genius, and yet the guy can't figure out birth control because he's got like 14 kids and 5 baby mamas. They say it was really a great monologue by Trey Gowdy. and how Elon really stepped in it this week. And Elon jumped out of the corporate world, where as a corporate guy he could be very quick, very decisive, and he got to the world of government where it's very, very slow. And I'm sure that was quite frustrating, and I don't blame brother Elon for that. He went about it the wrong way. I think he knows that, but we'll see. All quiet on the Elon front. We keep a sharp eye on it, though. Every day we're watching to see what brother Elon says, to see if brother Elon is upsetting any apple carts today. All right, I want to remind you one more time that I'm heading out this week on Wednesday after the show. Just to give you a little heads up, I will be heading towards the airport shortly after that, and heading off to the state of Texas, stop there for a little bit, and then I'm basically heading to Africa. It's the bottom line. I got a little journey, a little spin around, some other stops to make. And Thursday and Friday this week, we will not do the show. I'll be traveling on Thursday and Friday to Africa. By Monday, next Monday, 1 week from today, this show should be live from Rwanda, and I look forward to that conversation with you from there. It's going to be fun, so you don't want to miss next Monday's show. But if you'd like to travel with me in spirit, you can. It's probably too late for you to hop a flight and book a flight and all that stuff. But I would ask you this week, if you've ever considered anything this week, would you help us get there? There's a couple of things I'm going to go do. We're going to wrap up our school year while I'm there. Producer Chad is one of the persons. Somebody else sent me money the other day. The charity said, "Hey, if you could apply this to the kindergarten graduation," and I will do that. Producer Chad stepped up, did that. A couple of others did that as well. But listen, this year has been. I've been honest with you. We're 1 week into the month of June, and about 1 week away from midway through the 2025, and it has been a very. We've been stretching a lot. We've been rubbing two nickels together. Because we have kids in school, even as I speak, that are not sponsored. Matter of fact, a lot of the kids in our school are not sponsored. And we have, sometimes you have a sponsor drop off and we don't go to that. Oh, your sponsor dropped off. You're out of here. We can't do that to a kid emotionally. It's just not right. And so when a child loses his sponsor, it is up to us as an organization, because of the well-being of the child, to find a way to keep those kids in school. And that's what we do. The same way, if political things change here in America in your school, they're not going to come and say, "Hey, your kid can't attend the school anymore." We provide education, and we've committed to that. So that being said, we have been a little short this year. It's been a lot of stretching, rubbing some nickels together, and a lot of prayer. If you can help us, I would like to deliver a lot of these funds. I'd like to catch us up for the rest of the year. If you can help us, we would appreciate that. Go to riverspromise.org. Again, what you give this week, literally, I will be, by the time we get it over there, I will be there on the ground, oversee it. $30 feeds a child 2 meals a day for 30 days. You get the $1 a day, 50 cents a meal. We feed a kid. If you make that $65, it includes their food, it includes their education, it includes their health insurance. There's just so many ways. I'm just giving you that as a real practical way to do it. But again, it's not just about the body, feeding the body. It's just not about the mind. This is a Christian school. We teach Jesus. We teach Christianity. We try to let them know that it's not just about what happens on this planet, but it's also what happens on the next planet. I'm about to send a newsletter out. I think today, if it should go out, I'm writing it now. And it is a thought of what does it mean to be an ambassador? There was talk many times, and many of you see me joke about it, about myself becoming, and I made myself available to the federal government to become an ambassador. And maybe one day that will be in the future for me. That's a long story. But there's a Bible verse, and I don't mean to get too preachy to you, but instead of preaching a good sermon, that says we are ambassadors for Christ. We are Christ ambassadors. And what does that mean? That means we are not here. We are in a foreign land, and I believe that. I'm not from this planet. I'm just kind of spending a couple of decades on this planet, then I'm out of here. And while I am here, I am authenticated and appointed to be an ambassador, as all of us who are Christians are, to be an ambassador for Christ. That's the Christian message. We are ambassadors. And so when I go to Rwanda, if I'm going to be an ambassador for Christ, what would Christ do for these kids? What would he do for the poor? What would he do for the hurting? That's what we want to do. We want to come with the full authority of the Christian message, and we want to provide for these kids the way that an ambassador would in a foreign land. So if you look at it like that, and that I'm an ambassador heading over to Rwanda, and I'm representing the Christian message, representing Christ, representing the kingdom of heaven, if you will, then what would we do? What would we have full authority to do? So that's how I approach it, my friend. So when you, we're all ambassadors, and so maybe you realize you're an ambassador and you're not going with me this week, but you would like to support the mission of the ambassador, you can do that. A donation is very, very helpful. I do appreciate it. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. There's your sermon. I've got several sermons. We've had the get kicked out of the country sermon. We've had the stand up for America sermon. And now we've had the we're ambassadors for Christ sermon. We ought to pass the plate here real soon. We may have to do that. All right. Good to have all of you here. If you'd like to donate, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Also, one more quick thing. If you'd like me to shout out to your business, I would love to do that. And send me an email, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. Please feel free, info@jimmylakey.com. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the globe that we, as the captain of the convo, I spin the globe and we steal memes from around America and around the world because we're cheap, we have a low budget, and we're like the Chinese. We steal other people's intellectual property, but different. Okay? You get it? Okay. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. There it is. Someone else created that. We're so lazy, producer Chad, that we could not come up with this meme all by ourselves. We're honest. It's $700,000. It's a used car for sale. It's a Tesla. Been driven about 12 miles. Happens to be the lawn of the White House. $100,000? Good. I don't know. Yeah. See, I mean, when I say we're lazy and pathetic, yeah, we didn't even come up with this on our own. That's the most simple meme ever. And producer Chad and I'm like, that'd be a good meme. If someone else stole that, we made that, we should steal it because it'd take too much work for us to do that one. At least we're honest. At least we're honest. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Oh, look, we're going to give credit for stealing this one, unlike the communist Chinese. When it comes to domestic terror, there it is, the streets of LA lit up like a tinderbox. When it comes to domestic terrorism, nobody does it like you Democrats. Mostly peaceful out there, isn't it, in LA? Yeah. Mostly peaceful, Gavin. You got it all under control, you jackwagon. All right, let's do this. Round around the globe we go. Monday morning, where we steal the memes from no one knows. We steal this one. We steal this one from El Arroyo, which is a sign that says, a plate of nachos is a food pyramid if you stack it right. The plate of nachos as a food pyramid is probably the better food pyramid than the crap we were sold when we were a kid. That thing was a total farce. The food pyramid, this is how you eat healthy. That's called diabetes on a pyramid, and that's what they served us, and that's the government advising you on diet. All right, round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Oh, it's Pocahontas, the Senator Elizabeth Warren. There she is dressed up in her Indian costume. Can I do that? Is that legal? Is that okay? It's feather, not dot. That she's an Indian. Senator Liz Warren lives in a $5.4 million mansion. She claimed Native American status to score a Harvard gig, paying $350,000 to teach one class. And now she lectures us that the system is rigged to benefit the rich. Yeah, think that one through. It's all true. She lied and claimed to be a Native American, American Indian. She got a gig paying $350,000 a year. She taught one class, and now she goes out and lectures all of us about the systems being rigged to benefit the rich. Oligarchs! Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Here's another one. Here, this is a thought. This is your encouragement for the day. I woke up today. Little beachfront property there. Look at how glorious that is. The sun is shining. Jesus loves me. And I'm not a liberal. Life is good. Amen and amen. It's another sermon. And yet it's a very, 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 very true sermon. All right. I think do we have one more? Let me see. Let's see if the meme machine has been milk dry. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Wah, wah, wah. Ladies and gentlemen, the meme machine has been milk dry. Don't forget, subscribe if you would to the podcast version. That way, if you ever miss a portion of the show, you can just hear the audio. We're on the Apple Podcast, the Podbean, the Spotify, the iHeartRadio, all of these. Just type in Lakey Unleashed And if you ever miss the live stream show, if you're listening on the podcast, you want to see it, we're live on most of these streaming platforms out there, and we're live every Monday through Friday, good Lord willing, and it all works out about 8 o'clock Mountain Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. So if you're watching the live show, go listen to the podcast and re-listen to it. If you're listening and you want to see how glorious this show is, you can come back and to watch it live again those times. And the live video feed does sit on all the platforms throughout the course of the day, and you can scroll back and watch it again. Rumble, good morning, Rumble. I haven't heard from our Rumble folks in a while. I'm gonna have to start spending some time on the Rumble page and do a little nurturing over there and get you guys in shape on Rumble. All right, ladies and gentlemen, remember what I said. Donations, info@riverspromise.org, info@riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org, info@jimmylakey.com. Either way, you'll find me. I ain't hard to find. Make a donation. I'm 48 hours away from traveling to the airport and beginning a journey that will take me back to the land that I love, that beautiful country of Rwanda, knowing that I go as an ambassador for Christ. And if you'd like to help that out, you can be an ambassador as well. Ready? How'd you like that? riverspromise.org. I'll catch you tomorrow morning. Until we meet again, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. May God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.